Compromiso is a word in Portuguese that has several meanings, but usually people think of commitment, like the commitment you have with your wife, right? You made a commitment to each other. But the word compromiso also means concession, a middle ground, right? When we reach a compromise, neither side is exactly satisfied, but we reached a compromise. In English, it's easier, right? In English, there's commitment, which you have with your wife, and there's compromise, which is that thing where you meet halfway. Well, the GR Corolla is not this car here. This is the GR Yaris, which has just arrived in Brazil, yours for 355,000 reais. If you hurry and get one of the 99 manuals or one of the 99 automatics, both at the same price, do you know what the GR Corolla was? It was a compromise. The car that Toyota chose to conquer the world in the World Rally Championship is this one, the GR Yaris. It appeared at the end of 2020, started being produced in volume in 2021, and now it's arriving in Brazil. It's already on its 4th or 5th WRC world title, by my count. Kala Rovanpera, right? This year he left rally for Formula racing. He's having vertigo problems, the kid. We don't know when he'll be back, but he was the most iconic driver of this car here. And a car with a lot of pedigree, a WRC star, let's put it that way. The car became famous, right? A car that wins is a car that sells. We need to launch this here in the American market. Toyota USA looked at it and said, a car that's exactly 4 meters long, 2 doors, back seat. Look, it has, but it's a 2+2, homologated for 2 seats. But those 2 seats in the back aren't for adults, no. Trunk, do you know how much space it has? I'll show you here, just a few liters. It's 174 liters. So, Toyota in the United States looked at it and said, that's not going to work. Let's do this. Take this brilliant powertrain here, which I'll show you too. Opening the hood of our GR Yaris, which simply has the most powerful 3-cylinder engine in the world, a 1.6 with 304 horsepower. Yes, more than 100 horsepower per cylinder. That's crazy, right? 40.8 kilogram-meters of torque. Wow, what a light hood. So, take this powertrain here from this engine, a 6-speed manual transmission with IMT, right? That electronic rev matching, and the GR4 all-wheel drive, right? Which you can see here, proudly displayed, painted on the radiator. So, do this. Take this powertrain and drop it into a Corolla hatch, right? The Corolla hatch, which is already a well-established entry-level car from Toyota in the United States. That's how the GR Corolla was born, which only has 2 flaws, right? It's 200 kilos heavier than the GR Yaris, right? 1,200 here, which is very little for an all-wheel drive car, versus 1,400 in the GR Corolla, and a wheelbase that's 10 centimeters longer. So, the original idea of the GR Yaris, the spirit of the GR Yaris, was somewhat tainted by the GR Corolla. Yes, it became much more practical for daily use, right? It has 4 doors and some trunk space. In Brazil, not as much due to the spare tire issue, but it still doesn't deliver. Look, I'll tell you guys, it doesn't even come close to delivering the purity in terms of dynamic behavior that this car here delivers. You see here, we have 18-inch forged wheels. We have 14-inch brakes. And we also have, besides the looks, which to me are much more appealing than the GR Corollas because it reminds me of a race car, we also have a lot more personality, especially here in the interior. I'm gonna start up our 3-cylinder engine. Can you already see what else it has? I'm going to put it here in sport mode. It has a slightly livelier roar than the GR Corolla. It has, look at that, how interesting. A bump here, because this car is already in its 5th year. It has already gone through some modifications. This here is not from the original version. This bump here on the passenger side of the dashboard. Do you know why it was created? Feedback from people who drive the car fast at Nürburgring and want to install GPS, V-Box, those kinds of things. There wasn't enough space, so now you have a USB port here, exactly so you can put your performance equipment here. It really shows who this type of car is for. Do you know what you don't have? Brazil is the only country in the world where people think a sunroof is something for sports cars. It's not. A sunroof reduces structural rigidity. A sunroof adds weight. What do you have here? Carbon roof on all GR Yaris in Brazil. This also shows in Brazil and worldwide, right? It shows how committed the car is when it comes to performance. And it also shows a bit where the weight difference comes from compared to the GR Corolla, which isn't small, right? And we have a dashboard, and in life, everything comes down to reference points, right? When I look at this dashboard, I'm immediately reminded of a race car, right? Because it's a simple, minimalist dashboard, right? The instruments you need with a 15-degree angle here to keep everything facing the driver, the pilot, it's what manufacturers like to call driver-centric. We have controls here like the intercooler spray, right? You can spray water on the intercooler on the track, lower the temperature of the engine and the turbo actually, right? By up to 20 degrees. The all-wheel drive control here, where you can choose between 3 modes, right? The normal mode, which is 60% to the front, the gravel mode, which in the GR Corolla was 50-50. Here, the gravel mode, right? 53 to the front, 47 to the rear. And the only mode that's really worth using if you really want to feel the special experience that this car offers, which is the track mode, where you need to press here and send 70% of the power to the rear. Why do I say it's the only mode that's worth using? Because this is where you get the return on your investment in the GR Yaris, and this was my biggest disappointment with the GR Corolla, especially because it showed up alongside the Type R, right? Then you looked at the specs of both. Wow, the GR Corolla is all-wheel drive. It sends 70% of the power to the rear. It's going to be more exciting on the track than the Type R. And it wasn't. The Type R, even with just front-wheel drive, with that double-axis suspension there at the front, it's very lively, making the rear lively when cornering, unlike the GR Corolla's clumsy rear end. Nothing that taking off 200 kilos and shortening the wheelbase by 10 centimeters wouldn't solve. What an awesome car this GR Yaris is on the track. You'll see that in just a bit in several different ways. We drove both the manual and the automatic. We're saving the best for last. Don't go anywhere. That's how today's social media algorithms work. The same customizable instrument cluster that we already knew from the GR Corolla, the same digital climate control, the same multimedia system, which isn't that impressive, right? It's not Toyota's strong point here in the national market. I was saying it all depends on what you're comparing it to, right? Because when I showed the GR Yaris still on static display at the auto show last year, some people said, oh, it looks like a bus dashboard. It all depends on what you're comparing it to, right? To me, it looks like a race car dashboard. At the rear, you can see it has dual exhaust instead of triple, even though it's a 3-cylinder. That's how you distinguish it from the GR Corolla. I also mentioned the intercooler water injection, right? There's a water reservoir back here, so you can even monitor its usage and easily refill it when you're at your track day. Notice also the battery here in the back seat, which helps this car have even more balance. It's an extremely well-balanced car. I imagine that even its tire wear during a track day is low because you get the feeling that there's 25% of the weight on each wheel and the traction is also being distributed very well, right? And as I said before, aesthetically, I think it beats the GR Corolla, especially in this color here, which is precious metal. It would be my color of choice if I were to put a GR Yaris in my garage. You can see here that it also highlights the carbon roof, something the black one doesn't, right? Which is precious black. Now, a car like this, regardless of whether you like the looks or not, whenever a car has a lot of racing pedigree, a car based on a street car, right? Like this car has in the WRC, it always hits me right in the heart, especially when it's a homologation special, right? I always talk about the Oggi SS, the Fiat Oggi SS, which was a car that Fiat made in the early 80s, a version just to be able to homologate that car for the Brazilian Rally Championship. The GR Yaris is that for the WRC, so it really makes your mind wander, right? With this Gazoo racing platform that Toyota has in Brazil today, could this be the start of a platform for some rally championship, maybe even a track championship? Who knows? But I'm singing its praises, and it's much better to show than to talk. So let's push this car on the asphalt and also on the dirt. Stay tuned, because the best always comes at the end. That's how you keep people hooked on social media with the algorithm. And then we'll come back to this same spot for our final thoughts on the GR Yaris. So now is the moment of truth. And I have to admit, I'm really curious for us to drive the automatic, right? It's a new thing on this platform in Brazil, right? Why is it so cool? This 8-speed transmission that was introduced for the American market in the Corolla, right? Toyota Brazil takes advantage and already offers it as a no-cost option here in the Yaris with the paddles, right? We have the glorious Fabio Carboni up front in the GR Corolla. And I can almost say step on it, Carboni, because I'm 200 kilos lighter here in the Yaris, right? The wheelbase is shorter. I've ridden as a passenger in this car at Velocità before and was very impressed. And maybe even part of my not being completely enthusiastic about the GR Corolla when I drove it on the track, maybe it actually came from the fact that I had already experienced the GR Yaris before, right? Which is the OG, right? The original gangsta of the platform. Look, it's already more tail happy too. Why? compared to the GR Corolla because of the shorter wheelbase, right? So the car rotates much more easily. Look, the rear end is really lively. The polar moment of inertia, right? Let's talk a bit of physics here. It's much more pronounced here. In third gear, I'm gonna shift down to second, but honestly, I didn't even need to. It's got torque, right? About 290 pound-feet of torque for a 1,200 kilo car is more than enough, isn't it? And another cool thing I like on the track, I like a responsive gearbox, right? An automatic with responsive paddles here, just the way I like it. Look, I hit the cone, I went off into the grass. Yeah, but I also like it when the car is in automatic mode. Here in the museum, let's shift down to second gear. I like it when it shifts up by itself. I prefer it, so that's one less thing for you to worry about. You can use your foot paddle to downshift. Now, when braking, we'll really feel those 200 kilos less. I used Carboni's reference there. We had plenty left, we had a good margin, so I have the feature, right? The word I wanted of the gearbox. The tire is already a little worn out, right? We're at a big event here. It's not just a press event, right? So more people have already driven in the previous days. You can feel it. Yeah, look, old school zero. I haven't done that in a while. Let's see what it does on the straight. Using the whole track here. Tucking in, 120, 130. I don't know if Carboni will go really low all the way to the end. 160, 170, we brake. Man, with the GR Corolla as a reference point, it's really easy too, right? Here in third gear, but like, just telling you in advance, right? Still driving it in automatic. In terms of chassis, it's really a much more interesting car than the GR Corolla here. It's taking a while to go into second gear. There we go. It's much livelier, much more eager, right? Much more stimulating. That's it, just like I said at the beginning, right? Here, the little control kills it a bit. The GR Yaris is the original idea, let's call it that, right? It's what this platform was born to do. And then, man, in the American market, it's gonna be hard to sell such a small car, right? And naturally, Toyota created the GR Corolla for the United States, which kind of ruined the original idea, right? It just added weight and a longer wheelbase to have a four-door car. A car with a more usable back seat and all that. But here, yes, we're seeing the idea in its purest form, right? In the form it was meant to take, let's put it that way. And I'll say this, it's not a dual clutch transmission, right? It's a conventional automatic here. But other than that, I wish it was a little more permissive when shifting from third to second, you know? When downshifting. Other than that, it handled all the other downshifts pretty easily and very responsive. I think now we're going to start the cool down. No, not yet. Our instructor here is still accelerating. I think now we are. I think there's one more straight. There's a little extra. There's a little extra. Let's go for the little extra. Yeah. Now this GR platform really makes sense in Brazil, in my opinion, right? I used to think the GR Corolla was a car that lacked that visceral feeling. That's the word I was looking for. Something the Type R really delivers, right? So, look how on the turn here I was able to do trail braking and the rear helped the car point in perfectly. Now, yes, when he turns on the hazard lights, right? For the old timers, we're going to start our cool down. Now, yes, Gazoo Racing, Toyota Brazil, really has a car that puts a big smile on any enthusiast's face, right? Which, in my opinion, the GR Corolla was lacking a little bit. So, would I still prefer to have a 4-cylinder engine? I would. Maybe even a little more power, right? The car has a very capable chassis, the car can handle it. But the big difference here for me is like Colin Chapman taught us, right? Taking 200 kilos off a car makes such a difference, right? Almost 200 kilos. And because of that, right, both the lightness, maybe even a bit of weight distribution, but mainly because of the shorter wheelbase, that's when this car really has a lively rear end, right? When entering a corner during trail braking, the Type R excels, unlike the GR Corolla. That's what bothered me about the GR Corolla on the track. On all counts, the cherry on top, it's still a bit cheaper, right? than the GR Corolla when it arrived. So, what a winning formula. Honestly, today my life doesn't allow for a toy like that. But this is a car that I look at and say, man, I wish I had one of these. The GR Corolla never really moved my heart, but the GR Yaris does, and it's going to move it even more. You know when? Now, we're going for 3 more laps with a manual transmission. Because in the age of social media, that's how it is, right? You have to save the best for last. The opening of the video is, the best part is at the end, huh? So now is the best part. 3 laps with the GR Yaris manual transmission. So that's it, right? Social media is like this. Stay until the end because it's going to be worth it. Look how interesting this is. Look at the difference here. How much pillar there is, right? The door comes up to here. And then you open it and you have all this pillar here, so to speak, taking up entry space. Why? To reduce the size of the body opening, right? So you have more structural reinforcement, right? More structural rigidity here. So it's really cool to see a car where whenever there's an engineering choice to be made, performance is favored, right? That's the definition of a homologation special, right? Which is, I always say, these are my favorite cars. I always talk about the OGI SS, right? Which was one of the rare cases we had in Brazil. Now we have the privilege of having the GR Yaris, right? You can see it, right? The driving modes here. We're in track mode with GR4, 70% of the power to the rear. Sport mode here, I imagine it's for the transmission. And the IMT, right? It's also activated, which does that little blip, the automatic rev matching. So, fire in the hole. I clipped a cone with the rear here. You know who? João Anacleto is coming up in our group here. So, let's go. It's already something else, right? A different sensory experience. You can feel the clutch travel here, and obviously the gear shift is super short, right, in terms of travel. There's a gear indicator here, look, in second gear, and that really helps on the track, guys, especially in a car with short gearing and a lot of torque. Sometimes, of course, when you put your hand on it, you'll immediately know which gear you're in, but it even helps you see what it's asking for. Look, it's asking for the next gear. Let me hold it in third here, but it even helps with your memorization, right? Like here, for example, turn 13, turn 4 here at Velocità. Depending on the car, you can think about whether you're going to take it in second or third gear. So, it even helps you second, third, fourth, even to try a heel and toe here. And now, for example, the problem we had, right, with the automatic. Wow, with this automatic heel and toe, you can also push it when downshifting, but it doesn't accept second gear. Well, with the manual, you don't have that problem, right? With the manual, it's really easy to push the big Corolla up front, right? You can't put Verstappen up front because with a 200 kilo advantage, we're way ahead here. And you thought, I'm going to do the heel and toe. No, you don't need to. The car already does it for you. You can go a little faster on this exit here too, hit a big curb. It's hitting the limiter there because the power and torque come quickly. I'm lifting off here so I don't bump into the GR Corolla, which returned my kindness with a spray of rubber on the windshield. This is the most technical part of Velocità, the famous patience corner. I like this little stretch here. Whenever a section is hard to really nail, right? It's rewarding. When you get it, it's more satisfying, man. Taking Vittoria tighter here is nice. I should have shifted into second gear. In this car, you have to take Vittoria tighter in second gear. Now I think he's holding back a bit too to step on it, Joe. At the top end, I think we'd get something similar, right? Fifth, fourth, third. The gearbox is pretty forgiving. It really accepts your clumsiness. Here I also like to go way out. I'm not racing here. I use all of this curb. Man, what a toy, what a toy. And then now I messed up in second gear, but it's really cool too, right? Because in the end, there are two things I think are worth mentioning, right? As much as it's a two-door car, so it's less convenient than a four-door. It has a back seat and small trunk, but it's not for families. Installing a child seat will be difficult. but you can get by with it on a daily basis, right? Use it as a daily, and the intercooler here really makes a big difference. Because this really is a car that, man, the guy who buys it almost has a moral obligation to use it on the track too, right? To use it on track days. And then you have this feature, right? To cool the car. It helps a lot, right? Because there's nothing more disappointing than a track day where you only get 1 or 2 laps at full throttle. Cool down, right? The meter is running, you want to drive, you don't want to waste a lap cooling down all the time, right? And here you know that you're in good hands that way, right? The car will take the beating, so to speak. I'm going to push a little harder here. There's a lot of front end grip, right? This one also has better tires than our automatic. It's got more grip, man. Let's find a second gear since the lesson has been learned. Taking my foot off. Let's see if there's going to be more whining on this third lap. Really? Yeah. I've repeated myself. Now we're in cool down. This car makes me want to own it in a way the GR Corolla never did, even because of the looks, right? The fact that it's basically the same car you see in WRC, the really aggressive rear end and all that. This GR Yaris speaks to me in a way the GR Corolla never did, even though it's a great product too, right? The GR Corolla is going to drop in price too. The difference between the two won't stay as big as it is today. It looks like the GR Corolla is coming with a few fewer features now. That's cool, Toyota. It's great to bring this benchmark car, right? The car that out there, right? The automotive press is always full of praise for it. It's great that we here in Brazil also have the chance to get it here in Brazil. So let's get to our final conclusions. Or is there another bonus round coming up? Hold on. Final round. Let's take a ride here in this thoroughbred, the GR Yaris, in the rally, obviously, when we, how's it going? Having a little WRC moment here. I know the roads at Pit Beach Camp well. I've already driven fast here in an ASX. We even did a few little jumps. Has this car been modified or is it stock?
No, it's stock.
Stock?
Yeah, it just has tires. They put on the shock absorbers, tires and wheels. It's pretty much stock. You already know the track here?
Ah, I drove it once with the ASX, you know? It's hard to remember. Good! Hit the brakes, man. Oh. The little mountain stretch is coming into play too. It's cool that the car already has a really nice stock power level, right? It's kind of a ready-made kit for the guy to buy, and with minimal preparation, like we have here, basically just tires and shocks, you already have a good package for endurance, a lot of performance. Trail here. It's nearby. Pretty much everything in third gear, thank you. Awesome.
Did you like it?
Man, I always say, man, rally is the most fun motorsport there is, right? It's the one with the most adrenaline. We were driving here at 60, 70, and the adrenaline was way up, the heart rate was way up, right? Yeah. I always feel a little pang that it's not more widespread, more popular, in Brazil, right?
It's a beautiful sport. It's visually striking. It's cool. The sport is great for the audience, right?
Yes.
And it really doesn't have the appeal it should have.
I always joke that the Yaris Rally, for me, which I covered for 2 years now, I think it was 2022 and 2023, is the best spectator experience if I want to watch an event. Man, you stay there on the edge of the embankment, having a barbecue with the cars passing right by.
It's a free event, right? You can stand wherever you want, right? As long as you follow the safety rules.
Yes. It's a great party.
It really is.
So, here's the thing. Now, let's get to our final thoughts about the GR Yaris. Thoughts as in the plural of thought, right? Final thoughts. In short, I never really had a strong desire to own a GR Corolla, It wasn't a car that touched my heart. I totally own one. I really wanted to have a GR Yaris, especially because the price is much more attractive than the price of the GR Corolla when it first came out. The GR Corolla will be repositioned, become a bit cheaper, and remain a compromise. It'll serve as the GR Yaris alternative for those who can't access peak performance. You need to have a little more space, maybe as the only car for the family. So if you really want the purebred, the original idea, your car is the GR Yaris. The only other genuine competitor to it, because we can consider the Type R a competitor to the GR Corolla, right? The only other real competitor that matches the GR Yaris, even in price, right? In that range of $350,000 and even in rally pedigree. But the rally pedigree of the Mini John Cooper Works goes further back. It comes from the 60s. It's precisely the Mini JCW, which has a 2-liter engine, right? It has a bit more torque, for everyday use. But I'll tell you guys, it's much less visceral than this GR Yaris, especially in the manual version, which would be my choice. It has the same 2-door layout, tiny trunk, right? So the decision is up to you, but between the Mini and the GR Yaris, I think, even because of the novelty factor and especially because of how visceral it is, I would easily go with the GR Yaris. And you, tell me in the comments what you think. I think it's a car that's going to get some hate on the Brazilian automotive internet because there are a lot of people on the Brazilian automotive internet who don't understand anything about cars and just talk nonsense because they have no frame of reference. I think this is a great product and very interesting, right? It's something we can be, in quotes, proud of, right? Since I'm criticizing the Brazilian automotive internet crowd, which is one of the things I love to do, the inferiority complex is really strong in the Brazilian automotive internet crowd, right? Brazilians are dumb and pay, Brazilians are this and that, but the poor Brazilian is just poor, right? We're only at the 80th per capita income in the world. But anyway, I'm digressing. Yeah, look how cool. Brazil is one of the very few markets in the world that has the GR Corolla and GR Yaris. Here you, the Brazilian consumer, can choose. In the United States, for example, only the GR Corolla. In Europe, for example, only the GR Yaris. I bet you weren't expecting that, huh? Like this video, subscribe, and share your thoughts on the news in the comments. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourself. Big hug.